The world was a very different place in the aftermath of the First World War. Germany was in ruins, both physically and economically. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, had imposed harsh penalties on the defeated nation. Germans were forced to accept blame for the war and pay crippling reparations. The once proud nation was humiliated and economically devastated. This perfect storm of resentment, instability, and economic hardship created fertile ground for extremist ideologies. Among them was the ideology of National Socialism, more commonly known as Nazism. This ideology, espoused by a fledgling political party known as the National Socialist German Workers' Party, preyed on the fears and frustrations of the German people. The Nazis offered scapegoats for Germany's woes. They blamed the Jews, communists, and other minorities for the country's misfortunes. They promised to restore German pride and power. Their message, laced with venomous anti-Semitism and promises of national rejuvenation, resonated with a population desperate for a solution, for someone to blame. It was in this tumultuous environment that a charismatic and ruthless leader emerged, Adolf Hitler. A failed artist and decorated veteran of the First World War, Hitler found his calling in the burgeoning Nazi Party, a movement fueled by anger, resentment, and a thirst for vengeance. Born in Austria in 1889, Adolf Hitler had a troubled childhood marked by poverty and a strained relationship with his father. His early years were spent in the small town of Braunau am Inn, where he struggled to find his place in a world that seemed indifferent to his existence. He dropped out of school at a young age, harboring dreams of becoming an artist. Despite his lack of formal education, he was determined to pursue his passion for painting, often spending hours sketching and painting. However, his aspirations were dashed when he was twice rejected by the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts. These rejections were a significant blow to his self-esteem and fueled his growing resentment towards those he perceived as responsible for his failures. It was during these formative years in Vienna that Hitler's anti-Semitism began to take root, fueled by the city's pervasive prejudice and his own personal failures. The city's political climate, rife with anti-Semitic rhetoric, provided fertile ground for his burgeoning hatred. He developed a deep-seated hatred for Jews, whom he blamed for Germany's economic woes and perceived social ills. This animosity would later become a central tenet of his political ideology. The outbreak of World War I provided an outlet for Hitler's simmering anger and frustrations. He eagerly enlisted in the German army, seeking a sense of purpose and belonging that had eluded him in civilian life. He joined the German army, serving with distinction on the Western Front. His experiences in the trenches, witnessing the horrors of war firsthand, further hardened his resolve and deepened his sense of destiny. The war, with its brutality and senseless violence, left an indelible mark on Hitler's psyche, deepening his hatred and solidifying his belief in his own destiny as a leader. The camaraderie and discipline of military life provided a stark contrast to his previous aimless existence. After Germany's defeat in 1918, Hitler returned to Munich, a city teeming with political unrest. The post-war environment was chaotic, with many Germans feeling betrayed by the armistice and the harsh terms of the Treaty of Versailles. He joined the German Workers' Party, a small fringe group that shared his nationalist and anti-Semitic views. This group would become the foundation for his future political ambitions. The party, later renamed the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or NSDAP, became a haven for disgruntled veterans and others disillusioned with the Weimar Republic, the fragile democracy that had replaced the German monarchy after the war. The NSDAP's message resonated with those who felt marginalized and betrayed. Hitler's charisma and powerful oratory skills quickly made him a leading figure in the Nazi Party. His ability to articulate the frustrations and desires of the German people set him apart from other political figures of the time. He tapped into the anger and resentment of the German people, whipping up fervent support for his extremist ideology. His speeches, filled with promises of national rejuvenation and scapegoating of minorities, struck a chord with a populace desperate for change. His speeches, laced with nationalistic fervor and venomous anti-Semitism, resonated with a population yearning for a return to greatness. Hitler's rise to power was fueled by his ability to manipulate the emotions and fears of the masses, setting the stage for the dark chapter that would follow in history. In November 1923, fueled by his growing popularity and the widespread discontent among the German populace, and emboldened by the chaos gripping Germany, Hitler and the Nazi Party attempted to seize power in Munich. This bold move was a direct challenge to the Weimar Republic. This ill-fated coup, known as the Beer Hall Putsch, ended in failure and landed Hitler in prison. The failed putsch was a significant setback, but it also brought Hitler national attention. However, the event proved to be a turning point in Hitler's rise to power. It was during his time in Landsberg prison that he began to refine his political strategies. While imprisoned in Landsberg prison, Hitler dictated his autobiography and political manifesto, Mein Kampf, My Struggle. This book would become a cornerstone of Nazi ideology. This rambling, hate-filled tome laid out his twisted worldview and his plans for Germany. It was a blueprint for the future he envisioned. It became the Bible of the Nazi movement, outlining Hitler's vision of a racially pure Germany destined to rule Europe. The book's influence grew as the Nazi Party gained momentum. Despite its crude prose and incoherent ramblings, Mein Kampf offered a chilling glimpse into the mind of a future dictator. It was a manifesto of hate and ambition. After his release from prison, Hitler focused on rebuilding the Nazi Party and expanding its reach. He was determined to achieve power through legal means. He capitalized on the Great Depression, which had plunged Germany into economic chaos, to gain support for his radical policies. The economic despair made his promises more appealing. The Nazis promised jobs, bread, and a return to national pride. Their propaganda was relentless and highly effective. Their message resonated with millions of Germans desperate for a solution to their plight. The promise of a better future under Nazi rule was enticing. Through a combination of intimidation, propaganda, and shrewd political maneuvering, the Nazis steadily gained seats in the Reichstag, the German parliament. Their influence was growing. By 1932, the Nazi Party had become the largest political party in Germany, although they still lacked a majority. Their rise seemed unstoppable. In January 1933, in a move that would have catastrophic consequences for Germany and the world, President Paul von Hindenburg appointed Adolf Hitler Chancellor of Germany. This marked the beginning of a dark chapter in history. Hitler's appointment as Chancellor marked a turning point in German history, setting the stage for a dramatic and devastating transformation. He moved swiftly and ruthlessly to consolidate his power, transforming Germany from a fragile democracy into a totalitarian dictatorship where his word was law. Within months, the Nazis had banned all other political parties, outlawed trade unions, and established a repressive police state that controlled every aspect of life. Freedom of speech and the press were abolished, dissent was silenced, and opponents of the regime were rounded up and sent to concentration camps, where many would perish. A key event in Hitler's consolidation of power was the Reichstag fire in February 1933, an incident that would have far-reaching consequences. The Nazis blamed the fire on communists, using the incident as a pretext to suspend civil liberties and arrest political opponents, thereby eliminating any immediate threats to their rule. In March 1933, the Reichstag passed the Enabling Act, which gave Hitler dictatorial powers, allowing him to enact laws without parliamentary consent. This act effectively ended the Weimar Republic and marked the beginning of Nazi Germany, a regime characterized by its brutal repression and aggressive expansionism. To eliminate any remaining threats to his power, Hitler orchestrated the Night of the Long Knives in June 1934, a purge that would solidify his control. This purge of the Nazi Party saw the murder of hundreds of Hitler's opponents, including Ernst Röhm, the head of the SA, the Nazi Party's paramilitary wing, ensuring no one could challenge his authority. This brutal act of violence sent a clear message. Hitler would tolerate no dissent within his own ranks, and his grip on power was now unassailable. Having consolidated his power domestically, Hitler turned his attention to his foreign policy goals, which were equally ambitious and dangerous. He was determined to overturn the Treaty of Versailles, rearm Germany, and expand German territory, believing it was his destiny to lead Germany to greatness. He withdrew Germany from the League of Nations, began secretly rearming, and in 1936 sent troops into the Rhineland, a demilitarized zone according to the Treaty of Versailles, defying international agreements. The lack of any substantial response from the international community emboldened Hitler, setting the stage for further aggression and ultimately leading to the outbreak of World War II.